Hey there, folks, and welcome back to the Dammâseq Campaign. Last time we saw the death of Ahiram I and the ascent of his very promising young son, Daniel II Abarid, with his consort Bat-Noam. This power couple is bringing an 8-6-7-9 stat spread to the nation, one of my best statistical leaders in a long time in the campaign. I'm very, very excited for what we might be able to accomplish under Daniel II. I talked at great length last time about some of my ambitions during my planned golden age for Canaan under Daniel. And in order to start this golden age off on the right foot, this episode is going to be a big review of the nation, and I have a bit more of a structured plan than in the past. In the past, I've just kind of gone through all of my various sectors of the nation, whether it's my offices, my researchers, my governors, all my policies, all my imports and exports, and I've just kind of like randomly changed around everything to see if things got better. This time around, I'm going to be a bit more focused and a bit more precise. Now, at the minute, before we do any changes at all, we're starting off already in a strong position with 100 treasury income per month, which is a great flatline base to try to maintain and then grow. A really strong 362 manpower per month, with a incredibly enormous 42,000 manpower total maximum. We probably have the manpower maximum in the world in terms of the total manpower pool. I don't know that for sure. I don't know how I can measure myself against others with the in-game tools, but I suspect, given my focus I've had on assimilation, that's likely the case. We have a really good built-up bank of political influence just kind of sitting around. Also, and this is something that I don't often get to enjoy during a succession, we happen to have extremely good stability right now, 62 stability, which gives us a bit more flexibility to maybe use our PI a bit more for various uses, as we don't need to worry about doing any stabilization efforts right now, so that's really handy. Our, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, our legitimacy is not amazing, but it's creeping its way back up, and there's not too much I can do to boost this really fast, so it's just going to slowly increase back up to 100, and the Freedman happiness effect should continue to get better, so I'm not too worried about that. No war exhaustion at all, which is great. No AE at all, which is nice. It's just nice for the sake of the transition here that we're not dealing with that. And the tyranny, obviously 88, we're still dealing with high tyranny, but it is still declining, and we've got Shapesh in effect. We do have a year that we can do an omen change coming up. I'm probably going to continue working with Shapesh under Daniel. I thought about whether it was worth it to just give up on trying to lower my tyranny, as it doesn't seem to be progressing very quickly at all, and go back to worshipping Ashara to help with assimilation. But at this point, I think that our need to frantically assimilate as much is not as strong, and we have so many assimilation bonuses in effect, and we can continue to get more, such as when our wonder completes, that Ashara's bonus for assimilation doesn't feel as ultimately useful as, again, trying to work on just getting our tyranny down. We can actually run a low tyranny gain ruler with Daniel, as I can just avoid some of those actions that generate tyranny. I can grit my teeth and avoid dismantling cities when I have some tyranny room for it, even though I'm always tempted to. At this point, I think I've dismantled the most egregious, worst location cities here and there. There are still quite a few cities sitting around, which annoys me, because I want to further, concentrate my populations into really good locations. But it's okay. I can, for the sake of lowering tyranny, I can survive that. And we have really good tyranny reduction right now, especially with our really strong, it's not really strong, but our pretty good 7 charisma, so that's pretty good. Now, Daniel II, he is the ruler, and I think I noted last time his traits. If I didn't, I'll note them here really quick. 8% national slave happiness is really good, along with the 8% governor slave happiness for Herman. So we can really genuinely throw all of the Comedic slaves into Herman and have them be relatively unimpactful on the nation. I think I'm going to do, as part of this episode, some big slave migrations of as much as I can with my money. I don't have infinite, treasury stored up here, even though I have a really high income. I'm going to be moving some non-Dammâseq slaves up into Herman, both into Dammâseq, but also into the other areas of Herman, which are going to be quite stable. Lustful, so that's more fertility. Plus 0.02% pop growth in Herman is really great. He's a coward. We've seen this before, so that's not great. Morale of armies under his leadership, that's not amazing. But it is what it is. We can't do too much about this. And then content, so that doesn't really do anything at all, because he's the ruler. Now, I should also note, by the way, that his successor is Isabel Aberid, who is 14. She's okay stat-wise. I'm a little bit worried about this. And incidentally, he actually has a stronger successor already with his younger daughter, Astarte, who has a similar stat spread to her older sister, but notably better martial and zeal. And she also has more time to develop better stats. So I'm kind of suspecting that I may end up having to favor Astarte through some in-game mechanic. I don't remember how I can do this exactly right now, and I won't do it right now. We're going to wait for both of them to come of age before I make any firm conclusions. I'm also going to hold off on marrying young Isabel once she comes of age to the best possible suitor. I may save him for her younger sister if it ends up working out that Astarte really does have much better stats. But they're both really young, so I don't need to marry them both off like right away. It's also, of course, possible that Yappa, Astarte's younger sister, may develop amazing stats. There's no way to tell. Yappa's just a toddler, so who knows. But yeah, so Daniel has 3 daughters, no sons at all, so that's an interesting twist on things. And one side effect of this, whoever my chosen successor between Isabel and Astarte, and or maybe Yappa, ends up being, none of them are allowed to be governors. So that means that the Kadesh governorship, which is now open, because Daniel was the governor before, needs to go to somebody who isn't actually Daniel's successor, which is going to be a bit of a change. This is just a gameplay thing that I have to do because female officers and governors aren't allowed under the rules of the Dammâseq culture, so it is what it is. We'll worry about that later. And in fact, actually, let me go over really quick my planned route through my reforms in this episode, now that I've sort of talked about the general situation, talked about my resources and kind of where everything is in that sense, and about the succession situation. So the plan is, first things first, I'm going to go through my offices and my research positions and clear them all out, as I usually do. I'm then going to look at my governorships, and instead of firing all my governors and rehiring, which ends up costing me ultimately hundreds in political influence of reassigning policies, which again, one of my least favorite mechanics in the game. I don't really understand why it has to work like that, but that's how it works. I have to work around that. So instead what I'm going to do is, instead of firing all my governors, because I can fire all my officers without unpausing with no downside, but instead of firing all my governors, what I'm going to do is look at all my current governors and carefully decide, are each of them in the best candidate for their governorship. So for example, at this point my mindset is that I'm going to have my most populous my most populous regions in terms of integrated population with levies. I'm going to focus on having my highest martial governors in those regions, so I have the most flexibility with using high martial led levies to supplement low martial led levies, if that makes sense. So, and the way I'm thinking about this here is that a high population, I don't have it open in front of me, we're going to look at it in a bit here to verify the exact numbers, but a high population Dammâseq region like Kadesh is going to be fine under a higher martial, maybe lower finesse governor, whereas a really high population low Dammâseq region like Ugarit or Moab-en-Adam or Ebla, that really needs to have a high finesse leader, even if they're not great martial-wise. So the priority is going to be, because in the past what I've done is I've had sort of my borderlands or my kind of not fully worked out regions have these high martial, low finesse leaders just to get a good general out of having a governor. And at this point, all of my regions that I control, I almost fully control. There's still a tiny bit of Ebla that I don't control. We'll deal with this later. There's a civil war going on, so it'd be complicated to deal with right now. But aside from that, essentially all of my regions, I in effect, essentially entirely control. Meaning that at this point, the days of having kind of these partial regions that I just use to get a good general out of, I don't need to think of it like that anymore. Now I can more effectively make use of not just the Hermann levy, but other regions with large levies as places to have really high martial leaders when their high finesse isn't as necessary. I have so many bonuses going on, and when the wonder finishes, these will only increase of integrated culture happiness. So places that have a lot of integrated culture don't need as high of a finesse leader to keep them stable. Now, a higher finesse leader could make them more productive and more profitable, so that would certainly be handy. But at the end of the day, I have to make tough calls here and there about whether I have a high martial or a high finesse leader to use that population in this or that way. And under Daniel, I certainly do plan to go to war, and I do plan to make use of these levies as best I can. So making sure that we've got high finesse leaders in the places that matter is important. And so once I do that thing and I review everything with the governors, the priority here is ultimately that the governors are in their best positions, and then I'll go back, fill in the officers with everybody remaining. I'm also at this point, and this is part of in the lore, part of Daniel's kind of like big Golden Age reforms, is I'm now at this point no longer going to flatly hold back from having non-Dammâseq officers or other kind of positions of power. I think that there's some number of non-Dammâseq nobles who, for reasons I don't actually really fully know, are part of my court. And I guess you can say, like, in the lore, these were, like, collaborators from these nations that were conquered, and they're allowed to be in the court for one reason or another. And ultimately, some of these guys have really strong stats, and I've been kind of hesitating to use them because I've wanted to have a fully Dammâseq government, but ultimately, you know, Canaan maybe kind of led by the Dammâseq culture, but Canaan is a multicultural nation. I'm working to change that by assimilating everybody. But the reality is that there's a lot of other cultures, and if some, you know, super high finesse, you know, savant is hanging around and he's Sama culture, why should Canaan not make use of his powers and make use of his abilities just because he's not technically Dammâseq in the right way? Like, at the end of the day, anyone who is of Canaanite religion should be fair game for being in my government. I'm not going to hire anyone who's not Canaanite religion at this point. I think that we're not quite there yet. But non-Dammâseq, I'm now opening up. My heart is softening. I'm opening things up to allow non-Dammâseq officers and maybe even governors. I'm going to approach the governor thing a bit more carefully, because if they're not Dammâseq, they could have reduced loyalty, which for a governor matters a ton. But if we have a really loyal character who happens to not be Dammâseq, there's no reason in Daniel II's mind that that person shouldn't serve the state, and that ultimately is kind of the driving motivation here. So with that noted, once we do all of the sort of character review, the governor review stuff, we're then going to go ahead and do a sort of economic review. And there's going to be two parts to this. First, we're going to go through all of my, we're going to cancel all of my imports, not my exports. I've learned my lesson from last time, where the reestablishing of my export economy took like 20 in-game years as people didn't have the slots ready. So we're going to not cancel, with the exception of any instance where having multiple copies of a resource that I was exporting from a location makes sense for my plan for the province, which is going to be a rare situation, but I will be open to canceling exports situationally, but I'm not going to cancel them all like at the same time for sort of no particular reason. What I will do, though, is cancel all my imports and then reorganize my imports with a focus on having imports for resources that boost, for example, like noble happiness in places where we have the most mad nobles, and you know what I mean, and you know, citizen happiness and tribesmen and freemen and whatnot, maybe tribesmen as well. There's like some, I mean, I can actually just show you here. I think I'm importing like let me find my earthenware imports. I'm importing so much earthenware. Yeah, like I'm importing earthenware, like so much earthenware all over the place, because earthenware is such a common resource. But I'm not necessarily importing the earthenware to the best places possible for where I need the citizen happiness the most. So that's part of what this review is going to show us, is where those imports should be happening. So that's the first part of the, or that's one part of the economic review. The other part of the economic review is making sure that I've got all of my best mine resource tiles, both already turned into mines and also full of slaves. So we're going to be going through and verifying that all of our mines are working correctly, that we've got our slaves organized into those mines in the best way possible. In Moab and Adam, there's a lot of marble tiles that I haven't really worked with yet, so we're going to start to transform these tiles into really productive locations to get some more tax and some more commerce money from exporting that marble, because marble is worth a lot. So lots of stuff to do. And then one more thing as well, and this giant review process may end up spilling into the next episode most likely, because there's just so much to do. And this may seem a little boring, but this is genuinely how we make the Golden Age start, right? I mean, Golden Age is sort of a concept, it's not like a gameplay mechanic, but the Golden Age has to be based upon, you know, the campaign actually having, you know, some sort of progression, and we need to our best way to facilitate Daniel's ambitions is to have making sure that the nation we currently have is optimized the best way possible. So that's kind of like, you know, a necessary part of this whole thing, right? And so another thing we're going to do as well is we're going to reorganize our navy, as I've been talking about. I'm going to split the navy once I do the kind of the region review. This will get some perspective on the numbers involved. I'm going to basically probably end up splitting the navy. One thing I might do as well is I may actually downgrade the navy numbers-wise. I don't know if I need to have all of my ships at the same time. It's possible what I end up doing is I end up cutting my ships down to just a size to carry my most important levies in total, like the Herman levy for sure, maybe also the Kadesh levy. And I think of it more like the navy carries the levies with the best martial leaders, and then all the other levies are expected to just walk to their locations. And the reason I'm thinking about this is because aside from the kind of particular situation of Kemet and these sort of delta wars, using the delta to land, other naval-related wars don't really need to have all of my levies on the ships at once. And even the Kemet wars, at this point now, Jedit has enough territory into Kemet's territory that I can actually use Jedit's territory as a starting point for most of my levies on foot. And so essentially, I don't think I need to have a high enough transport fleet, or high enough number of transport fleet, or a large enough number of ships in my transport fleet to carry all of my levies at the same time. I don't think that situation really exists anymore, or that need for it. And so I think what I'm going to do is, and this will save me a lot of money, even though I'm not paying for my ships very much, is I'm going to cut down my transport fleet to a size that can carry the Herman levy and possibly also the Kadesh levy. My planned two main martial levies, and then I'm going to be replacing the ships that I'm destroying with a proper single, I think it's 30 combat width for the open ocean, kind of actual war fleet. And knowing as well, by the way, that if I ever need to build more transport ships, I have a ton of cedar that I can just cancel the trades for and build a new transport fleet really fast. So this, not having tons of reserve ships sitting around shouldn't honestly be a big problem. So with all that explanation, we're almost 20 minutes into the episode. We could get started here with everything. Not with unpausing, of course, but with everything else. So, first things first, let's head on in to the government and get to firing. And we're going to do this part first, because this part, has to happen. I'm going to first make sure I'm firing all the lowest loyalty characters first, just to be safe. These family heads probably should go first. Let's see here. Fire this guy. We may end up rehiring a lot of these characters into their same positions, but we will... The whole point of this is that we'll see where it makes sense to do that or to not do that. So, work our way around. Another thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to, before I proceed here, actually I already talked about this, so now that we've done this, I'm not going to fill this all right now. I'm now going to switch over to my governor list and kind of examine what's going on here. So, just first of all, at a sort of a first look, let's see what the situation is with our governors. So Herman is ruled over by Daniel. Obviously 8-6 are the stats that are relevant here. So Herman's our largest region by far, so that makes sense. Let me actually, can I sort it by population? I cannot. So incidentally, Kadesh is actually no longer my second most populous region. I suspect it still has our highest Dammâseq population, which is not something I can actually easily see here. I can actually see that through the military thing here. If we look by strength, Herman and then Kadesh, Jordan Rafali is close behind, and then Phoenicia actually already is pretty close as well. So we have. I'm gonna sort of. I'm gonna describe this as Herman. Obviously, is the largest, but we don't really make a decision about that because it's just our king. Kadesh, Jordan Rafali, and then Phoenicia trailing behind are the three I'm going to prioritize having really high martial leaders for. Maybe just Kadesh and Jordan Rafali. Jordan Rafali has let's see here. Can I see this in the list somewhere? Let me see. I don't think there's a way to very easily see this. I guess I can look at it in the culture map mode. Yeah, so if we see where Jordan Rafali is, Jordan Rafali is almost entirely Dammâseq. It's hard for me to see like the regions percentages, but I mean the levies numbers back this up as well. It's not as integrated because Kadesh, which has a smaller population in total, has more levies in total, but it's pretty close. So Jordan Rafali is definitely at this point able to be ruled over by a high martial leader. It doesn't need to have a good civic leader necessarily anymore. Phoenicia is a bit more complicated because Phoenicia, let's see here, region-wise, Phoenicia's up here. So Phoenicia is a lot more culturally diverse. Yeah, there's still a large number of like Tyrians and whatnot. There is a lot of Dammâseq activity around here, so maybe Phoenicia is fine to not have a high civic leader. I guess the best way to verify this, or the best way to kind of measure this, is by thinking about, you know, okay, yeah, so this clears this up. So the loyalty here is really strong. So that's the determiner here, because ultimately non-Dammâseq population can only matters in the sense of its effect on provincial loyalty. So things here are really good. The only places where there's slight problems, Tyr is completely neutral, and then Sagada is in a slight decline, but we can probably fix that with a building or two. And then if we look at it, of course we can't, yeah, we have to look at it through the other thing to see the numbers here. We'll do as part of my region review, we'll do a check to see if anything else needs to switch over to Borderlands. But I think that Phoenicia is actually in an okay position to switch to a good martial leader and not as high. I mean, this guy has 6 finesse, so ideally someone who at least has 6 finesse, but we will verify that later. Right, so with that noted, so Herman, Jordan Rafali, Kadesh, and Phoenicia are going to be my high martial sort of like levy-centric regions, with Canaan, Ugarit, Ebla, and Moab and Adam being where I put my higher finesse governors, because these places are in a bit more of a situation. Canaan's probably the most stable, I'm suspecting, and that appears to be the case. I mean, I have a lot of places on harsh treatment, so that's helping a lot. But Canaan is same culture group, so that should be fine. This place has a lot of potential with its population to give me a big levy, but we're not there yet. Ugarit, I suspect, let's see here. Ugarit's a pretty small region, all things considered, but yeah, we may be able to update some of these policies to more productive ones, like cultural assimilation. It looks like all of them, or actually maybe not Suhere. So, okay, we'll look at that later. So we'll take a look at that in a second. Ebla, this place actually is in the worst state possible. Yeah, the problem is we have a high martial, 0 finesse leader here. Ebla, this is a great example of someplace we really need a high finesse leader, and the martial situation doesn't matter as much. So I will definitely replace Asmilkart. I may actually move him to be the governor, possibly of Kadesh. Like, honestly, that's a possibility I'm open to. Moab and Adam, 4-6. Let's see how it's looking down here. Not great. And that's 6 martial as well, or 6 finesse as well. So this one I may need to come back and review. So the plan now, with that noted, is let's first of all fire the governor of Ebla, who I know for sure is not going to be in that position. So let's fire this guy. That's a surefire. And then let's check and see where else we want to switch people around. Governor of Ugarit having 6 finesse. This I should probably replace with a higher finesse character. I mean, I don't know offhand if, actually I could just check in here, couldn't I? Let's go over here, Governor of Ugarit, sort by finesse. There's definitely higher finesse characters sitting around here, so yeah, we can definitely fire this guy. Okay. I think the way I'm doing this here is the smart way. Alright, so Phoenicia, 4-6, things are stable-ish right now under him. he is on the older side. I think I will go ahead and fire this guy as well, because 6 isn't standout finesse, and Phoenicia needs standout finesse to really be in the best shape possible. Yeah, that would be the way to do it. So let me go over to Phoenicia, fire this guy. Okay, and I have a lot of PI saved up, so I can do some of these plays. I can apply some of these policies, these governor policies. Canaan with 5/5. This, I think, we should replace with a high finesse leader as well. This place is pretty okay, but we definitely should make sure that we've got our really good finesse, young characters with good finesse for these places. Okay. Then Moab and Adam, this one definitely. Moab and Adam is definitely my most precarious situation stability-wise, so yeah, 6 finesse has been okay, but we've got to really prioritize, like, we got to find some real standouts. So, okay, so those regions we are for sure going to be replacing. The last question is, do we replace Jordan Rafali? Ipfer Kura has been a really good governor for us for many, many decades. He's an elder statesman at this point. And I think that what I might do is I might actually move Ipfer Kura. I mean, he's 70, so he's getting up there. His other stats are terrible. But Ipfer Kura, like, you may not like it, but this is peak Dammâseq stat distribution. 1-8-1-1. This is the kind of Chad I need to have in my government. Like, my finesse brain drain has been so brutal that Ipfer Kura is the model of like an officer for the state that I need to have more of. So we're going to be using his powers for good here. So I'm going to fire him. He's also in poor health, which isn't great. He's got gout. He's castrated. I don't know when this happened, but okay, sure. But his region should be ruled over by a high martial character. So in this context, I did end up firing all my governors, but I've done all these fires more for like particular reasons, not just kind of willy-nilly, and then I've been reassigning them willy-nilly. So I think this is still ultimately the right move. So first and foremost, I think that even though Moab and Adam doesn't have a huge population, it has the most cultural diversity and a lot of wrong culture group diversity. A lot of the Sinai Palestinians live down here. So Moab and Adam needs a high finesse leader the most of anywhere to stabilize things. So this is the first priority down here. So let me head on over here. Okay, so if we're sorting by finesse, we've got Ipter Dagon, or Mitba, who I think I've noted before. He's got Just, which would give us more civ change, which I guess would be fine. 11 finesse is obviously really strong. Loyalty-wise, things are a bit more questionable. Let's see here. The Scorn family will go away, and revoked offices will go away. He's also a family head. I think his loyalty should be fine. Once his family's not scorned and we give him an office, I think we have enough loyalty bonuses going on that this shouldn't be a long-term problem. And honestly, Moab and Adam having a disloyal governor, that's not a huge deal because their levy will be tiny. So I think we do make this guy a family head leader of down here. I'm wondering, though, is it better to make him a researcher? I think he may have been the researcher before. And I do think that having our highest capability characters be researchers is important. I guess the question becomes, does Urumilki Eshabalid, who is Irkata, so that's something to note. But loyalty-wise, that doesn't seem to be creating any serious issue. Character culture happiness minus 2.40, you know, whatever. Stat-wise, effective governor, state religion happiness, that's really good for helping with stabilization. These guys are all going to be Dammâseq, or I mean Canaanite culture, or I mean Canaanite religion. Frame and output as governor is interesting, and province commerce 10%, who cares about that down there? Urumilki would be a good alternative to Ipter Dagon as the governor. And I think, though, I think I'll make Ipter Dagon the governor. I'll make Urumilki the researcher, probably. I think that's what I'll do. I think it's fine to have slightly worse researcher, because I really want a good finesse character down here. And Ipter Dagon is slightly younger. He's not young by any stretch, but he's slightly younger. He is ailing, which isn't great, but he's not, like, near death, so this might be fine for now. And there's no, like, really young characters I can turn to down here. I mean, the best would be someone like Umeshtart, who is much younger, but much lower stats as well. So I think Ipter Dagon is necessary down here. to stabilize things. So let's see what he's done with the policies now. Also, loyalty-wise, he's at 45. Again, once his family's not scorned, that won't be an issue. And by the way, that's with the power base of Moabit Adam, so I don't think we're going to have problems with him. So we set everything over to local autonomy, which is, generally speaking, the right idea. Things are... Petra's not in great shape, but actually all of them are in okay shape. I don't know why this was on civilization effort. I think as well that I think I am going to be switching my mindset from having harsh treatment be my main loyalty improving one over to local autonomy. At this point, I think the damage done by harsh treatment to locations is no longer worth it. All of my current territory I consider to be my kind of cores of my nation, so I want to do local autonomy over harsh treatment. Not to mention that I now have enough assimilation bonuses, and the Wonder will help this a lot too, where them having extra happiness and just less output will be a bit more optimal for their assimilation. So Eloth I'm going to micromanage and switch over to local autonomy. And I think this amount of things here, I mean, we do have really high stability right now, so this is a little skewed favorably. But what I can do is, because I have the highest finesse character in my nation sitting as the governor, what I can do is I can go down here and continue building new buildings to maybe add a bit more stability. In fact, I can do that right now while we're talking about it. I don't need to do this later. So in Eloth, let's see here, do I have all the buildings I need for stability? Peacekeeper, Palace, Garrison, we do have all that. This Nabatean Noble is the problem. Are they demoting, or what's going on? We have a... Are they leaving, perhaps? Or assimilating? I think down here they should eventually convert or change or assimilate or whatnot. Let's see here. What do I want to do? I think I'll build a theater down here, to be fully honest. Yeah. I'm going to build a theater down here. Okay. And that should... the Noble Happiness, this is Happiness, that should probably make Eloth either loyal or about unchanging. So that should be fine. Up here, minus 0.3. And again, these numbers are okay for now. This place is finishing the Peacekeeper, so I think this should be fine after. I'm going to queue up after the Peacekeeper, the Garrison, just to be thorough. And then we'll return here later to see if any more changes need to happen. I think this place is a colony as well, so there's a lot more happy Dammâseq living here. Also, do I have colonial ventures in effect right now? I don't believe so. So, can I set up a colony down here? Who lives down here? This is the Elathi. Hold on, let me do it like this. Work by name. Taba still, so that's the wrong spot, so never mind. What about up here? Who's the culture here? The Joffins. I think I have a Joffin colony by now, but let's verify. Actually don't, okay. But I can't set one up. Okay, well, who else? Those are in here. The Batiri. I would want them to be in Batir, okay. Okay, here we go. I'll do it in Batir. So Batir gains colony. This looks good to me. Alright, Batir, a Dammâseq colony. This is for the best. Okay, we'll come up to Batir in just a second. So Zophar, we've attended to the building thing. Soar, let's see here, minus 0.5. This is probably fine, and it's got the two buildings. Actually, it doesn't have a garrison. I'm going to build a garrison here. That should fix it. Over here, Western Dead Sea, this place is so unfinished that I'm not going to do anything here yet. Okay, over here in Batir, we've got the palace, the garrison, and the peacekeepers. I think this is basically stable, and now that it's a colony, it should also start to have a more like balanced population here. Is that noble converting or changing or whatnot? They're actually growing a new noble. That's not great. They should eventually demote away, so we'll worry about that later. Alright, Dibon, how are things looking up here? This is basically stable, and it's got all the buildings. Okay, so I'm glad that I checked this just to sort of see the situation. So Moabit Adam looks like it's unstable, but it's actually essentially stable. My high stability is helping that out a little bit, but once these buildings finish, things should start to clear up here. And it's my most recent conquest, so should ultimately be okay, all things considered. Okay. So, next up, in terms of who I assign, I'm now going to switch gears and go over to Kadesh, because Jordan Rafali, though it has more population, doesn't have as large of a levy as Kadesh. It's getting there, but it's not there yet. So, Kadesh remains for now my second region of the nation, and I think for Kadesh, we're going, because we can't assign our direct heir to be in charge of Kadesh as the tradition dictates, so let me pour some coffee here while I think about this. We're going to be assigning a high martial character, ideally somebody on the younger side, but we may not have a lot of options there. Okay, sort by marshal. So keeping in mind that we have no officers assigned anywhere, so we have the most characters possible. So here we have a promising character, Hiram Adonabal, 28 years old, 9 martial, only 2 finesse would probably be fine in this situation. This modifier doesn't matter too much. Good loyalty. I think this guy is going to become our Kadesh governor. I don't know if this situation means that we're not going to continue the tradition of having our heir be the Kadesh governor, but for now at least, this guy is a good, and he's basically kind of a, he's going to have to stand in here, and he's going to bring some good martial for the situation, so, yep, there we go. Let's take a look and see how he's changed all the policies. Let me actually do it, let me do it like this, because this way I can double check the amount. So, 87% Dammâseq, so this should stay as Borderlands. 92% Dammâseq, so this one should be switched over to Borderlands. 88%. Probably all these are going to be Borderlands, but I'm still going to verify. Let's see here. 87% is already Borderlands. 85% this is Borderlands. And then, yeah, 86% is Borderlands. Okay, so... And then Yabrudu, this one is not going to go into Borderlands. Yabrudu, I think, as standard, should go onto acquisition of wealth for the extra attacks. I mean, it doesn't make a big difference because of his really low stats. I guess one thing to note as well is his lower stats means that Borderlands has less of an effect, but I think that's fine. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. Let's see here. Actually, maybe Yabrudu should be on Encourage Trade for its food situation. I think I will do that, and then I might be able to get away with importing less grain. So we'll put this place onto Encourage Trade. That's fine. Okay. So that's Kadesh sorted out. Next up is Jordan Rafali, and this place is a lot more provinces squeezed in here. So, okay, so for Jordan Rafali, again, high martial, and then the finesse doesn't matter quite as much. So I think Batno and Milkramid is a promising option here. Incapable means reduced citizen output, which is annoying, but not the end of the world. Loyalty-wise, let's see. Scorn family, revoked offices. So these are both going to get fixed. Again, 2 finesse, 8 martial. I think this is the way we go. Alright. And then let's take a look at his... This guy loves his food. Trade is being encouraged across the board. I think Jordan Rafali is entirely going to go onto Borderlands, but let's just verify that. Yisrael, 81% Dammâseq, yeah, so that's back on Borderlands. Brakat's already on Borderlands, good. Come on. 90% Dammâseq, that goes onto Borderlands. And I'm doing it like this, by the way, because in the menus, I can't see the percent number, and also see that it's in Jordan. I have to do it by name, so this is the best way technically. 73% in Jericho. I think it's probably fine just to put it on Borderlands. I think we're close enough, honestly. 85% here. Jericho will assimilate up to 75 pretty soon, so I'm not too worried about that. 89% onto Borderlands. And then down here, it's already on Borderlands. That should be all of them. Yeah, okay. I'm also running out of political influence. Let 0 per month. I think that's glitched. That's going to be fixed later. Although that does remind me, actually, that you need to be on Scheme Influence before we unpause. Okay, so hopefully after a day or so, this adjusts to be correct. Okay. Maybe because I have scorned families or something, that's why that's like that. Anyways, back over in the governor assignment situation. So Jordan Rafali is assigned. I'm also spending a lot of tyranny to change all these policies, which is annoying, and I may have to wait because of that, but it is what it is. Okay, so next up, in terms of regional problems, I think Ebla is probably the next, well, I think overall Ebla is the one I need to attend to next. So over in Ebla, once again, so now we've assigned, actually let me back up here. Phoenicia, let me see here, so Phoenicia's 57% Dammâseq, 89% Dammâseq, where else, 70%. This is a bit more culturally diverse. So what I'm going to do here with Phoenicia is I'm going to assign. I think Phoenicia still needs a high finesse leader. I think Herman, Jordan Rafali, and Kadesh being my trio, my little triumvirate of high martial core levies, that makes sense to me, and that's also enough for my needs right now. So you guys, everyone else gets high finesse leaders. So Irkata is actually a local culture from up here, so this guy may actually be canonically a good pick up here. It's, Palmarine's a bit further away, so maybe this guy becomes the Ebla governor. Actually, that'd be kind of appropriate. So technically, because Irkata is a culture from up here, so this isn't a Phoenician culture, but I guess I could make this guy the Ugarit governor just to be. I guess is it racist to do that? I mean, I guess he'd probably prefer to be the governor of his homeland. It's not racial profiling if he's asked me to do it. I don't know. Let's not try to imagine how that works. But he's also kind of old, 67. So that's possibly a hindrance to this plan. Yeah, because Kadesh young, 28, 24, and then Daniel himself is pretty young as well. Mobadadam, 59. Alright, let me think about this. Okay, so let me assign that guy to be the Ugarit governor, I think. I think that's probably the smart move. Both because it's kind of nice because he's actually from Ugarit, and because Ugarit needs a high finesse leader, so let's assign him up here. Everyone's the right religion. Oh yeah, this is all fine. Okay, and then we'll take a look at his policies in just a second. Actually, I guess we can just do it right now, because Ugarit has a... Stop scrolling, please. Ugarit has only a couple provinces, so... Alright, so down here, 55%, so this should not be on Borderlands. This should be on Assimilation. Yeah, definitely, this should be on Assimilation. Okay, up here, pretty happy. This place should be on Assimilation. Assimilation. We're about to lose our ability to do this. This place definitely needs to be on Assimilation. And this place here is actually unhappy. What's the issue up here? It just doesn't really have, like, a city here. That's the problem. There's no city up here because the capital's in this forest to have good buildings. I could make Kinsaba a city. It's a forest, so I don't like that too much. But without a city up here with buildings to improve local happiness, we're going to have these problems. I could just move people out as well. There's a lot of slaves here. I think I'll just move people out. I'm going to move the slaves to PD, I think. PD is giant, by the way. This is an enormous city. It's even eclipsed Ugarit, which is great because this is my local city that I set up myself. Yeah, I'm gonna move these slaves out of here. Oh my gosh, there's still a lot of people living up here in Kasab, which I demoted from being a city before, including a Dammâseq noble. Yeah, I'm just gonna move some slaves out of here, honestly. So this place will be fine once I do that, or it will be more fine. So let me just roll the dice here, put this onto assimilation, and then I'm gonna move some slaves out. So let me move into Terjano, move pops from Kasab. Move all non-Dammâseq out, I should say. And then move them out from Kinsaba as well. So Dammâseq slaves get to stay, everybody else has to leave. And I think that's probably enough. So now these guys here, move them all into Mazar. Move them from Turjano, I should say. And then move them into Pidi, which already has a lot of slaves. But this place is more or less stable, and I can build more buildings, more infrastructure in Pidi. Pidi is like a giant city, by the way. I've not really been thinking about this for a while. This is one of my largest cities in my nation. Comparable, actually, to places like Dammâseq, or let's see, where else. Yeah, this might be my second largest city in my nation for some reason, or whatever. It also has the tribal city design. That's fine. Alright, so move from Bazaar. Alright, that is fine. It actually is now happy for some reason, so I don't know how that's the case, but okay. And then down here, let's celebrate all these new slaves we moved in by frantically building a garrison, just to help out a bit further. Okay, that I think has resolved this problem up here. Still not great up here, but it should start to improve now that we move some population out. Let's see. There's like a lot of slaves over here. You know what? I can do a bit more up here, actually. Let me further move some non-Dammâseq out. Well, no, I think we're okay, actually. 0.18 reduction is sustainable. I don't need to frantically address that. Okay, so at this point, we're basically at capped out tyranny, so I may not be able to make many more adjustments, but I think that should be okay. We can just do more once we unpause and time progresses. So next up in importance is probably Ebla for stabilization. Okay, so up here, I think I'm going to assign this Palmyrene guy, because I think Palmyra is like over here later on in history, so this is kind of nice, kind of a neat idea, a neat scenario. He's also young, so Shalim Ahum Bestid will be the governor up here. We now have a civil war happening. Why is this? Oh, we have power-based facility. That once we fix our scorn, that'll go away, so that's not a problem. Okay, so we no longer can do any... Actually, hold on, wait. Oh, he's actually disloyal, that's what's going on. Okay. What is the problem? Tyranny, great power, power base, he's lapsed, character, culture, happiness. Oh, the Palmyrenes are furious, that's why. Okay. So I can adjust this, I can personally fix it with him. But let me actually go to the Palmyrene culture. And take a look and see. They've already got their colony in Tadmor, which I think is also going to be his seat. I can give these guys some rights. That would fix things. It also would help with Ebla's stability, because there are some Palmyrenes, including Tadmor, which is like the Palmyrene capital of the universe. I can trade stability for some of this stuff, I think. Let's see, what do I want the most here? I think right of inheritance is the best. Actually, I think the downside of integrated culture happiness 3% reduction is better than the national citizen happiness reduction, because that affects non-Dammâseq. So let's do protection against torture. So that gives me the 6%. The 12% culture slave output is not a big deal at all. I don't care about that. So I think this is fine. I usually do this because of provincial loyalty, but I'm actually going to do this because of cultural happiness. So protection against torture, 5 stability should be fine. Alright. Canaan has wisely enacted protection against torture for the Palmyrenes. How does this guy feel now? I mean, maybe on the monthly ticket goes up. I could also bribe him, but I'm going to wait and see if I can ride this line extremely closely. I didn't think about it, so maybe I should be racist actually, because I didn't think about how mad the Palmyrenes were. I thought the Palmyrenes were pretty chill. Like this is kind of a surprise, but okay, whatever. It's fine. We're fine. So because he's disloyal, I can't change his policies at all. I can't do it because of tyranny anyways. So we'll come back to that later. I guess let me see actually what he's doing policy-wise. It's just all profit sharing. I guess that's fine. We'll have to adjust all this later. Okay. So for my last governors here, Phoenicia and Canaan. So for Phoenicia, let's find a high finesse character. Could be Ipherkura. I mean, he does have pretty good finesse. Let's see here. I mean, Phoenicia does have a lot of commerce, so Ipherkura is probably pretty good. So let's put Ipherkura over here, I think. That's fine. And then we're going to adjust all the policies once we have more PI and tyranny room for it. And then lastly, Canaan. Let me lower all these things here. Let's head on over to Canaan. And this, again, just high finesse. So Sama isn't native down here, so I don't really want to put this guy here unless I have no better options. Deboni, I don't think Deboni is from around here. I think they're from Devon, who I think is... Yeah, Deboni's over here, so this guy's kind of from the area. But who knows what the Deboni cultural happiness is, probably, like, low. This guy has 15 loyalty from Submissive, though. He should personally be quite loyal, even if the Debonis are mad. So this guy is a possibility. Here's a Tunapite. Maybe this guy should have been the Ebla governor. Oh well. Could put a Joffin. Jaffa is definitely like the local culture, but this guy's kind of old. Actually, they're all kind of old, so... let's see here. We do have a good, promising Dammâseq in Umeshtar, but I think for governorships, having them be super young isn't as big of a priority. I think I'll put... let's see here. Yeah, I think Adonabal with his high personal loyalty is a pretty good pick here, so... 8-6 is pretty good. Alright, and he ends up being at 52 loyalty. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so now let's go back over to our offices and our technology things. So let's now assign for maximum credit, what do you call it, merit. So as Milcart Bastara with 8, that'll have to do up here. The Joffin guy will end up being my finesse researcher. Let's see here. Bulo Menace Bastara with 10 will be my oratory researcher. Also, the Civil War's gone away, so that's good. So now that governor of Ebla should be chill. And then Milkpilis Chelbasid is going to be our religious advancer. So that'll have to do for now. Not the best researchers I've ever had, but I have so much research right now, and my efficiency is so high that I think this is okay. I think having good governors matters more at this point than having good researchers. I don't really... There's only so many more techs that I really need, honestly. At this point, it's just kind of filling out the tech tree for the sake of it. Okay, so now that we've done all that stuff, and there's a lot more micromanagement to do once we unpause and get more tyranny room and get more PI. We have to change all the policies and whatnot. We can do and at least assign all of our offices here. So High Priest, Bommelkar, I think is the way to go. That's fine. National tax. Let's see here. The Sama guy would be good for that. So would the Tunapite guy. We do have a Dammâseq character that we could use alternatively. Aberami has a promising future, actually. So I think I may make this guy my steward. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make this guy my physician, I think. I want to try to groom this guy to be a possible future good character. He's 18, 6'7", so he could go in a martial or ideally a finesse direction. A possible future governor here as well, so let's get him some statesmanship going in the physician position. So steward I'll give to the slightly more qualified... yeah, this guy's 68 personal loyalty, so... Sipit Baal Gerbalid, welcome to the government. You're going to be my steward. Alright, Chancellor. Well, Chancellor may not be as important now. Master of the Guard. Let's see. Anybody qualified at all? I think I'll make this younger character, Umesh Tart, Master of the Guard. Again, I want to try to get this guy some statesmanship. Monthly civ change. Let's throw the Rahobi. Actually, hold on. Baal Milkerman, let's put him there instead. Chancellor. I think I'll... Actually, let me switch this around. I'm going to put this young, promising character, Aberami or Mitba, as my royal tutor. I'm going to put the slightly better Baal Milkramid as my chancellor. I think it's worthwhile to try to groom slightly lower stat, but young, promising Dammâseq characters where I can. And then lastly, for Marshal, anyone... Melkart Piles, I guess, is a promising character. He looks really old, but he's only 16 years old, so this would work. Alright, so let's make this guy the Marshal, I think. That's fine. Okay. Oh, also the Court Philosopher, of course. Let's see, anybody young we can groom. Ahum with 7 Zeal would be a okay option. Also, who's scorned? The Aberids are scorned, I think. Hold on. Ooh, okay, this is a problem. We've got Abdestart, who is the son of Gamilla, who is my sister. So we've got my nephew, who is... This is, I think, the only other man in the entire family right now. Let me look at this again. Also, the clone generation is almost dead at this point, so that's handy. Actually, we got Balmulkar. So we got Balmulkar in, and then we don't count for some reason, and then Abdestart is too young. So yeah, we literally can't fix the scorn problem for... I mean, the Aberrid should be mostly pretty loyal, all things considered, because we're the ruling family, so I think we're fine. Anyways, for Court Philosopher, I think what's our highest? 8? I think I can get away with 7 for a promising young hero. So we have a good... Now we've got all of our governors assigned with an eye towards their effect on the region. All of our officers assigned with an eye towards both having our most important positions be filled by veterans and our less important positions be places to groom promising younger characters for command later on. So that's pretty good. And with that done, that's actually going to be it for this episode of the Dammâseq campaign. This was an extremely sort of like close, detail-oriented review episode, but we, with a bit more time to do our to get our tyranny down, to be able to change more policies, we're in position to get our nation super well optimized. Next time, we're going to be continuing, now that we've done all the governor and region selection stuff, we're going to be turning to the economy, going to be working through and doing all of our import reorganization, going to be adjusting our navy, going to be doing all that, and making some plans for our first conflicts under Daniel II. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.